Today, there's no news, no teaching in the temple, no crowds, no confrontation with the authorities, no miracles, no parables, just silence. The tomb is sealed. The disciples are scattered. The movement that felt like it was going to change everything has apparently ended the way most movements end when empire gets serious about stopping them. In violence and in silence. Today is Holy Saturday. I've been thinking about what it actually means to actually sit here in this day without jumping ahead. Because we know what's coming. We've always known. We grew up with Easter. We know the tomb is empty on Sunday morning, but the disciples didn't. And I think that the difference between knowing and not knowing is something we need to feel today. Really feel. Not just acknowledge and move past. So I'm your host, Reverend Andrew Graham Shipley. This is the Mission Gathering Christian Church Disciples of Christ podcast. Today is Holy Saturday, and our episode for this installment of Unlearning Empire is called The Day Nobody Knew. Let's try to imagine it honestly, can we? Friday night, the body was taken down from the cross. Joseph of Arimathea, a secret follower, asked Pilate for the body. It was wrapped in linen and spices, laid in a tomb. A stone was rolled across the entrance. And then Saturday, the Sabbath, which means nobody moves, nobody travels, nobody gathers publicly. The women who wanted to anoint the body properly had to wait until Sunday morning because you don't do work on the Sabbath. So they waited. And I want to stay with that image. The women sitting somewhere, maybe together, maybe separate, with the spices they'd prepared, waiting to do the only thing left to do for someone they loved. The disciples, the dude disciples, wherever they were, probably not together, scattered by fear. Some of them maybe still running. Peter's somewhere alone with the memory of the fire in the courtyard and the 3 denials, the sound of a rooster crowing. Mary, Jesus' mother, doing whatever mothers do when they have outlived their children. Just sitting with it. No liturgy for this. No service, no ritual that makes it easier. Just the specific, particular weight of the day after someone you loved was murdered, executed. And I think we need to name something that the church has mostly been too uncomfortable to say out loud. The disciples had no reason to believe in resurrection. I know that sounds strange. We know they heard Jesus talk about it. We know he'd raised Lazarus. We know he'd hinted at what was coming. But knowing something intellectually and believing it when you're sitting in the aftermath of a crucifixion are two completely different things. These were first century Jewish people. Resurrection wasn't a foreign concept to them, but it was an end times event. Something that happened at the end of history, not something that happened to one person in the middle of a Saturday, while the empire that killed him was still very much in charge. There was no framework for what was about to happen. So Saturday, for the people who loved Jesus, was just loss. Unmitigated, uninterpreted, unresolved. The story had ended. It had ended the wrong way. The way stories about people who challenge the empire almost always end. And they had to sit in that for a whole day, not knowing. Thinking about this makes me want to talk about something that I think the church has been doing badly for a very long time. You see, we are terrible at grief, not at performing grief. We have rituals and services and the right words for the right occasions, but actually sitting in it without fixing it, without explaining it, without rushing past to the part where it gets better. We like to skip Holy Saturday. Most churches don't have a Holy Saturday service. You go from Good Friday, which at least names the death, straight to Easter Sunday, which resolves it. And being honest, I don't have a Holy Saturday service planned for this community. The day in between, the day of not knowing, the day of sitting with unresolved loss, mostly just doesn't exist in our liturgical imagination. Which I think says something important about how we handle grief more broadly. Because here's the thing about grief that nobody tells you when you're in it. It doesn't move in a straight line. It doesn't follow a timeline. It doesn't care about your schedule or your theology or the fact that you know intellectually that things eventually will be okay. Grief just sits there, and it demands that you sit with it. And friend, the most harmful thing you can do to a grieving person or to yourself when you are the one grieving is to rush the process, to offer the silver lining before the loss has been fully felt, to pivot to what God might be doing in it before the person is ready to think about God at all, to get to the resurrection before Good Friday has had time to breathe. The disciples, both male and female, his mother, his kin, they don't get to skip Saturday. They had to live through every hour of it. And I think there's something spiritually important in that we keep trying to escape. So I want to name some of the Saturdays that people carry. Not just today, not just this liturgical moment, but the holy Saturdays of ordinary life. There's the Saturday after that diagnosis changed everything about how you understood your future. The Saturday after a relationship ended that you thought was going to last forever. The Saturday after you finally left a church that had been hurting you and found that freedom, felt less like relief and more like standing in a parking lot, not knowing where to go. The Saturday after a movement you believed in fractured from the inside, and the people you thought were allies turned out to be something more complicated. The Saturday after you stopped being able to pray the way you used to pray, and the silence that replaced it felt less like peace and more like absence. Those Saturdays are real, and they don't resolve on a schedule. Some of them last for weeks, some for years, some for seasons of life that you can only name as Saturday when you finally come out the other side of it, if you ever even get there. And the church has mostly not known what to do with people living in those Saturdays. We keep wanting to get to Sunday, to drag them into Sunday, to offer the hope, to say, but here's the good news. And sometimes the most faithful thing to just say in the Saturday, just stay there. Just say to them, I'm going to stay with you in the Saturday with the person without fixing them, without trying to make them a project, without trying to drag them into something else because you're uncomfortable. There's something else about Holy Saturday that I think is important for our particular moment we're in. This moment, this space and time. The people listening to this podcast, the people who've been deconstructing, who've walked away from church or are walking towards something new. I believe that we are living day to day in an extended Holy Saturday, theologically, institutionally, and politically. We watch the institutions that were supposed to hold truth choose their own survival instead. We watched movements that were supposed to represent justice replicate the same power dynamics they claim to be dismantling. We watched people we respected turn out to be more complicated than we needed them to be. And we're sitting with questions that don't have clean answers. Questions like, is God real? Does prayer do anything? Is the church even salvageable? Is justice actually possible? Or is it just a story we tell ourselves to keep going? Was any of it true? And here's what I want to say about those questions. I'm not going to answer them today. Not because I don't care, not because I think the questions don't matter, but because Holy Saturday is not the day for answers. Holy Saturday is the day for sitting with the questions without requiring them to resolve. The philosopher Paul Ricoeur talked about what he called the second naivete, the faith that comes after you've passed through criticism and doubt, that is richer and more honest than the first naivety you started with. But you can't get to the second by skipping to the middle. You have to go through the place where the first naivety collapsed and you don't know yet what comes next. You have to sit in the not knowing. And friend, that's not a failure of your faith. That's what faith looks like on Saturday. And to anyone listening right now, I want to say something. If you've been stuck in a long Saturday, if you've been someone who's been waiting for something to shift and it hasn't shifted, who's been praying into silence and the silence hasn't broken, who's been holding on to the possibility of Sunday for so long, that they're starting to wonder if they made it all up. Friend, you are not alone in that. The disciples were there. Every person who has ever followed something true and watched it get crushed by something powerful, they were there too. Every activist who has worked for justice and watched systems absorb and neutralize the work, they're there. Every person who loved a church and watched it choose comfort over courage, they're there. Friend, you feel alone, but this long Saturday is crowded. And I don't say that to be bleak. I say that because I think knowing that you're not alone in the waiting is sometimes the only thing that makes the waiting survivable. So, what do we actually do with today? I've been sitting with that question, and I keep coming back to the women who had prepared the spices, who were waiting to anoint the body, who couldn't move yet because of the Sabbath. They didn't know Sunday was coming, but they were ready to do the next right thing as soon as they were able to. They weren't out trying to start a new movement. They weren't writing manifestos. They weren't performing courage. They were just present, prepared, waiting, ready to show up and do the small, specific act of love that was in front of them. And I think that is what Holy Saturday asks of us. Not resolutions, not answers, not a plan for how to fix everything, just presence. Just the willingness to stay. Just the quiet preparation to do the next right thing when the time comes. For my community mission gathering, I want to name this honestly. We are a community trying to follow Jesus in a moment when the institutions of Christianity have done enormous amounts of damage. When the name of God has been used to justify harm against every person in the room when we get together. When the church, for many of us, is the source of a wound rather than a source of healing. And we're trying to build something in the middle of that. Not pretending the damage didn't happen, not rushing past the grief to get to the good news, not performing resurrection before we've actually sat with the death. I think in a lot of ways we are a Saturday community. Not because we don't believe in Sunday, but because we know you can't get there honestly without passing through here first. And we're committed to doing that together. In the silence, and the not knowing, and the specific, unresolved, ongoing grief of people who loved something true and watched it get hurt. We will sit here together as long as it takes. The tomb is sealed. The story, as far as anyone knows, is over. And I'm not going to tell you it's not. Not today. What I will say is this. The women prepared the spices anyway. They didn't know Sunday was coming, but they prepared for the possibility that there might still be something left to do. That love might still have a next act even after everything had gone silent. That showing up, even to a sealed tomb, might matter. I think that is what faith looks like when it's being completely honest, not certainty, not triumph, not the confident declaration that everything is going to be okay. Just preparing the spices, showing up anyway, staying present to the possibility that love is not finished, even when it looks finished. Friends, that's enough for today. That's more than enough. I'll be with you tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow is Easter Sunday, and I promise we will get there. But for today, just rest and sit with it. Mission Gathering is online and in person. Links in the show notes. God bless.